Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students of 9C, I am your teacher Muhammad Ilyas. I welcome you in this special series of e-learning, and this is your second lecture for biology. In this um, lecture we will focus on the transports in humans, and this topic is taken from your book chapter number 7, and according to CI syllabus this is the topic number 7. Dear students, our objectives for today's learning will be the effect of physical activity on pulse rate, how the physical activities affect the pulse rate, and secondly we will be focusing on the coronary heart diseases in terms of occlusion of coronary arteries and causes. Thirdly, we will be focusing on the components of the blood as red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets, and the plasma, and their specified functions. The fourth, the transfer of materials between the capillaries and the tissue fluids. So these will be our focusing points. So be ready and concentrate on this today's topic. The first of all, the pulse rate. Pulse rate or heart rate is this is associated with the physical activities of our body. If we are doing some physical activities, for example, when a person exercises, their muscles need more energy. This energy is provided by aerobic respiration, which requires extra oxygen to be delivered to the muscles. To achieve this, the heart rate increases along with the volume of the blood pumped with each beat, called the stroke volume. The changes in the heart rate are controlled by a part of the brain called medulla. When exercise takes place, respiration in the muscles produces carbon dioxide, and receptors in the aorta and in the carotid artery leading to the head detect the increase in the carbon dioxide and send nerve impulses to the medulla. In return, the medulla responds by sending impulses along a nerve to the heart muscles and stimulate the heart to beat more strongly. And when the carbon dioxide level get to the normal, this process is reversed. In this way, the heart rate or pulse rate is being controlled in our body. This is from this discussion you have understand that basically the role of carbon dioxide concentration is very important in the pulse rate. When its level increases, the pulse rate increases. When its level become normal, the pulse rate come to the normal. Now we are moving to the cardiac cycle. Our heart is beating and throwing the blood, moving the blood in our body. The blood is moved to the heart by a sequence of contractions and relaxations of the muscles in the walls of the four chambers. This sequence of contraction and relaxation of muscles is called the heart cycle or cardiac cycle of our body. Basically, this is having two diastoles when the heart muscles are relaxed and allowing the blood to move in, and systole when the heart muscles contract and forcing the blood to move out of the heart. In detail, we can focus on this. These are the four steps which are very helpful to understand this cardiac cycle. The first one, the both atria and ventricle are relaxed. Deoxygenated blood from the body enters the right atrium through vena cava. Oxygenated blood from the lungs enters the left atrium through the pulmonary veins. Blood passes through the atrioventricular walls into the ventricles. Blood passes through the atrioventricular walls into the ventricles. Number 2 step. The atria contract, blood is pushed through the atrioventricular walls into the ventricles. 3. After a few tenths of a second, the ventricles start to contract. The increase in the pressure in the ventricle closes the atrioventricular walls, preventing backflow of the blood into the atria. When the pressure in the left ventricle becomes higher than the pressure in the aorta and the pressure in the right ventricle exceeds that in the pulmonary artery the semilunar valves open. Oxygenated blood flows through the aorta to the body, and deoxygenated blood flows through the pulmonary artery to the lungs. While the ventricles contract, the atria relax. After four stages 1 to 4, the ventricles relax again, returning the heart to the stage 1. This sequence repeats over and over again about 70 times a minute throughout a person's life. This is how, dear students, you can understand how the cardiac cycle is completed. Now we are going to focus on the blood. Blood is very important tissue for the transportation system, and if we look at the composition of the whole blood, this is comprising of, you can see, the red blood cells about 41%, the white blood cells about 4% of the blood composition, and 55% is the blood plasma. What is the plasma? If we can see from this diagram, this is the pale liquidy material present in our blood, and this is very helpful for carrying different functions. We will inshallah discuss in detail further. Now the blood, there are three types of blood cells in our body. The red blood cells, also called the erythrocytes, the white blood cells, also called the leukocytes, and the platelets, they are also called the thrombocytes. Types of the blood cells which are found in the blood tissues. Now we are going to focus on the overall functions of the blood. Blood supply oxygen to the tissues. It's also supply nutrients such as glucose, amino acids, and fatty acids to the different parts of the body, and removal of the waste such as carbon dioxide, urea, and other materials from the body. Immunological function, including circulation of white blood cells and reduction of foreign materials by antibodies. Coagulation, the response to a broken blood cells. Conversion of the blood from a liquid into semi-solid gel to stop the bleeding. Messenger functions, including the transport of hormones and the signaling of tissues damage. If any tissue is damaged, this signal is sent to the brain by the blood. And beside this, regulation of the body pH, body temperature, and hydraulic functions. These are the overview of the some important functions of the blood. Now we are moving towards the one by one each and every components of the cells and its function. Blood plasma, as I told you, blood plasma is a pale yellow color material of the blood, and it is having some important functions. We will see over here. Suspend blood cells and transport blood cells. The blood cells are suspended in the blood plasma, and that also transport the blood cells to different parts of the body. Carries metabolic waste and nutrients. Circulate hormones. Maintains the water content and the body temperature, and maintain the acid-base balance of the blood. These are the very important functions done by the plasma. Now the red blood cells. Red blood cells, I told you that these are called the erythrocytes. You can see from this diagram that the size is very small. These are flattened biconcave disc, lack of nuclei, and the mitochondria. They don't have the nuclei when they become mature, and their diameter is very small. Their bodies are very flexible, and lifespan is 120 days. The function of the red blood cells is to transport oxygen around the body, and to allow for this they have a number of adaptations. We are going to discuss the adaptations of the red blood cells. They contain a red pigment called hemoglobin, which combines with the oxygen and carries the oxygen from lungs to different parts of the body. As I told you that they don't have any nucleus, and other organelles like mitochondria. They have a biconcave disc shape which provides a large surface area to volume ratio for the absorption of oxygen, and the flattened disc shape means that there is only a short distance for the oxygen to diffuse into the middle of the cell. They are very flexible cells, allowing them to squeeze through the blood capillaries. The diameter of the capillary may be only just wider than the diameter of the red blood cells. Their flexibility helps to reach every part of the body. And beside this, hemoglobin combine with the oxygen and form the oxyhemoglobin, and in this way this is going to transport the oxygen to different parts of the body after taking the oxygen from the lungs. Now the white blood cells. White blood cells, as I told you, these are meant for the defense of the body, and the white blood cells are of different further type of cells are present in the white blood cells. We will see one by one. The neutrophils, they are having multi-lobe nucleus, and their function is the bacterial to control the bacterial and fungal infection. These are the most common first responders to the microbial infections. Eosinophils, bilobe nucleus is present. Parasitic infections and allergic reactions this is very helpful for the parasitic infections and allergic reactions, specifically inflammatory reactions. Basophils, these are having bi- or trilobe nucleus, allergic and antigen response, release histamine causing vasodilation. This is very helpful action to cause the dilation of the vessels. Lymphocytes, these include the B cells and the T cells and operates primarily in the lymphatic system. So these are very important components of the lymphatic system. That's why these are called lymphocytes. Monocytes, these are having the kidney-shaped nucleus, and phagocytosis of pathogens is done by the monocytes. Presentation of antigens to T cells. Eventually they become tissue macrophages, which remove the dead cells debris and attack microorganisms. So this is the brief description about the functions of the white blood cells. Platelets. Platelets are not cells. These are the fragments of the some cells which are found in the bone marrow. Some important function of the platelets. Hemostasis. Platelets are important for hemostasis. This is because they aggregate to form platelet plug, which stops the bleeding from small wounds. So platelets basically to clot the blood. When the bleeding starts, it helps to clot the wound and stop the bleeding. They release the serotonin and thromboxane, which constrict the local blood vessels. If materials is done between the tissues and the blood. From this diagram you can see that how the exchange of materials is done. The water, nutrients and oxygen from the blood moving into the tissue cells, and from the tissues the waste material like carbon dioxide and other materials ammonia and lactic acid, these are moving towards the blood from where it is transported for the removal. The last very important topic, and that is the coronary heart disease. Artery disease or heart disease, dear student, the muscles of the heart is supplied by the oxygen through the coronary arteries, which are very narrow blood vessels that spread out over the surface of the heart. These vessels can become blocked by fatty deposits. You can see from this picture the yellow part. And this fatty deposit is called atheroma, resulting in a condition known as occlusion of the vessels. Occlusion of the vessels is done by the deposition of the fatty materials called atheroma. If this happens, the oxygen supply to the heart muscles is reduced, and this can lead towards the coronary heart disease. The first symptom of blockage may be a chest pain when the person does any exercise called angina. If there's a chest pain or sweating starts while doing some exercise, this condition is called angina. The atheroma also affects the walls of artery, causing it to harden. This is called atherosclerosis. When the vessels become hardened, this condition is called atherosclerosis. These changes increase the risk of a blood clot forming and block the artery. If this happens, the oxygen supply to the heart muscles will be cut off altogether and the heart muscles will stop to work properly, and this is called the heart attack. When a large part of the heart muscles is affected, the heart attack can be fatal. And the causes of these coronary heart diseases, first is genetically. Some scientists have identified that there are genes which are responsible for the heart diseases, and the very important cause is the diet. If we have saturated fats in our diet, this leads towards the cholesterol formation, and this leads towards the deposition of fatty materials in the blood vessels. And the third very important cause is the high blood pressure or hypertension. And third, after this, the smoking is also playing a very important role in causing the heart diseases. Specifically, this in the smoking, nicotine is present in the smoke of the tobacco, which has a number of harmful effects, and this leads towards the heart problems. So we have to avoid all these things, and we have to do more exercise, make our routine to do some exercise to avoid the coronary heart diseases. Thank you very much for listening, and now this is homework assigned to you. This is from chapter number 7, the questions from the past papers, question number 2 and 3, and this is placed on the page number 175 to 176. Thank you very much, dear students, for listening. Stay home, stay safe. Allah Hafiz.